you out there in YouTube land, this is Translator10 and I'm back with another action figure review. It's 2014, you know what that means. It's the 20th anniversary of yet another toy line that I grew up loving and collecting. And this one is, well, based on the old webhead himself. From the 1994 Spider-Man series, it is the Sinister Shocker. Looking at the card art, this is really one ingenious looking card. I have to say so myself. I really do love the cityscape and the detailing of all the buildings around it. It's just so amazing. It's almost lifelike. For 1994, this was a lifelike. The figure would have stood right around here where this outline is. That actually would have been the ledge of another rooftop. And right beside him is a billboard with lights shining, almost like it's advertising this figure. Not to mention you have the good old Spider-Man perched on top of his 1994 animated series logo, and you've got a really, really cool card. The figure himself is pretty basic. He is decked out in very maroon red color with some bright yellows and silver for the gauntlets and the cuffs on his boots, as well as his belt. Missing is the V. Now this guy was created in 1967 in the Amazing Spider-Man number 46 and was the second overall villain designed by John Romita. Because this guy uses concussion blasts coming from his steel gauntlets in order to insulate himself and to protect him from harm, he built this bodysuit with mesh quilted fabrics. And as you can see, it's very much replicated here. The figure is a little bit bulkier than he should be, especially around the arms and the legs. But that's just the 1990s for you. Not many figures were considered anatomically correct. But I guess that's what gives this figure that much more of a appeal. His articulation is as follows. He does have the head. His arms can go 360. He has no joints, but that's because of his little power gimmick. And he can bend his legs up and bend at the knees. That's it. Your standard 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points of articulation. Kind of similar to the standard turtle points of articulation for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles line. The paint is pretty basic. All that is needed to be painted is pretty crisp and clean in some areas, but there is some slop, mainly on the face. As you can see here, there are some sloppy areas on the face. Some are on the arms, around the gauntlets. And I did notice some right around that knee bend. But other than that, he's got a pretty decent paint job, and he is just one of those really cool basic little figures. Now, for those of you who want a fictional biography of the Shocker, pretty much he was in prison. Divine decided to break out, creating something in the machine shop, and came across Spider-Man one day in his new guise as the Shocker. Spidey laughed at the ridiculous-looking outfit and called him the Vibrator. Yeah, Stan Lee did have a nice little quippy sense of humor even in the 1960s. And in fact, there was this rumor going around that the Shocker actually was intended to be called the Vibrator until Standards and Practices said no, that was too dirty. Because after all, the Shocker did have a V on his belt, and he did have a V with his little vest. John Romita has come and said that that is nothing more than a rumor, and that really the reason why the belt came to a V was because it complemented the way that the vest went. came down. Whether you want to believe him or not, I tend to think is a really cool story. Anyway, to fire his little brisk gauntlets, his shooting power blasts, he comes with 2 translucent red-colored energy blasts. Now, of course, they're actually air blasts, but I think in the cartoon, it's been a while since I've seen it, they were transformed into energy blasters. So what you do is you pull on the arm like so, and then fire. They don't go as far because instead of the traditional, you know, little trigger switches that figures normally had, these are more or less used by friction and, you know, recoil effect as you pull on the actual projectiles. They do work very fine, and I had a lot of fun with this guy as a kid doing so. He is a very, very fun little figure, and if you can find him for a really good price, I would suggest picking him up. I mean, he's definitely a mainstay of the classic animated series, as well as the star of his very own Spider-Man spin-off book, Lethal Foes of Superior Spider-Man. So Shocker is getting a lot of love these days. So, if you can find him, pick him up. He's a nice little figure if, you know, if his head's a little too small. But he's a nice little figure. I'm Transato10, and I am signing off.